Thomas Christiansen is clearly the best manager in the Concacaf region while managing Panama. And that is right, but with Thomas Christiansen being the best manager in Concacaf, it has now led to some rumors linking him to the Canadian men's national team job. But would this make Christensen the best candidate to replace the current CanMNT and interim manager in Mauro Biello and ultimately succeed the legendary Canadian manager in John Herdman? Right now, Thomas Christiansen, for me, should be looked at as one of the top candidates for this managerial role, but I wouldn't yet say he's the number one best option out there. He's the best option right now that we know is in the running, but there might be some other ones that we might not know about because there's clearly quite a lot of interest within this Canadian managerial role. But with Thomas Christiansen in the past week picking up so much rumors and links to this CanMNT job throughout the past week, it now leads us to take a deeper dive into the rumors and if Thomas Christiansen might be the best fit for this Canadian men's national team job. So Thomas Christiansen is now the Danish 50-year-old manager who currently manages the Panamanian national team. And he has been linked to the Canadian managerial role, and it has sparked a lot of interest among many Canadian supporters throughout the national team, and as being the perfect replacement to really take over for John Herdman, especially with how bad Mauro Biello has done in his reign so far as interim with the CanMNT. But the links were officially broken around 4 or 5 days ago from Football Central America, and it's yet to be really determined how reliable Central America is with this links to Thomas Christiansen and the Canadian men's national team, but albeit not even that determined, it is still very intriguing news for Canadian supporters and of course Panama supporters as they have an iconic manager in Thomas Christiansen, who has truly carried this nation to do some brilliant things within the world of football. But Thomas Christiansen being linked to Canada is such a huge job for Christiansen and is a huge opportunity. But what he has done so far with his tremendous career with Panama is absolutely unbelievable. Christiansen was first appointed back on July 22nd, 2022. Christensen has now managed to build a brilliant resume with Panama and it continues to build. As it stands, the Danish manager has made 55 appearances on the touchline for the Panamanian national team while managing an impressive stat line of 29 wins, 14 draws, and only 12 losses across a 3-year and 4-month period as manager, which is clearly impressive as a manager of really not a top nation within Concacaf. He's not managing a Canada, he's not managing a Mexico, a US, or even a Costa Rica or Jamaica. What he has done with his Panama side, with no true all-stars, has been quite clearly unbelievable. But if you wanted to put that into a comparison with the man everyone in Canada would be comparing Thomas Christiansen to, would be the iconic Canadian manager in John Herdman, and comparing him would be a very easy comparison, as John Herdman managed to coach Canada on the touchline for 58 appearances, which is only 3 more than Christensen managed so far with Panama, while John Herdman earned 36 wins, which is only 7 more than Christensen, playing in 3 more matches, also having 7 draws and 15 losses, with both managers almost managing the exact same amount of matches. It really isn't too hard to compare the legs of John Herdman and Thomas Christiansen's sample size as a manager on a touchline for sides within Concacaf that they both really overachieved with. John Herdman was never expected to do what he did with Canada, and Thomas Christiansen more than likely was never expected to do how good he has done with this Panama side. But make it of as you will, but for me, Thomas Christiansen's record with Panama might possibly be slightly better than John Herdman, as John Herdman has had a far better player pool to choose from, even though he's only stuck with one set formation throughout his real tenure as a Canadian manager. So for Thomas Christiansen to do what he has done with that Panama side, for me, is much better than what John Herdman managed with Canada. And I say that very bravely because I am unbelievably grateful for what Herman brought me as a Canadian supporter, but Thomas Christiansen did some unbelievable work with Panama so far. But outside of the stat line of Thomas Christiansen with Panama, which is extremely impressive, as I've said so far, we have to look at the formations and tactics that he's deployed with Panama and what he will bring or might bring to Canadian national team if they so choose to take him over to the Canadian men's national team. And Thomas Christiansen's preferred formation, if you haven't watched much of Panama, has been a 3-in-the-back system, which is quite interesting as that is what John Herdman has always ran with the Canadian national side, and what his model Biello has done kind of similar, but he's more so running with the 4 in the back. But most notably, Thomas Christiansen has ran with a 3-4-3 system, which he's deployed 4 out of his last 5 matches with Panama, which currently would be a very intriguing setup as, like I said, John Herdman has done that multiple occasions, almost constantly when managing Canada. So it'd be very interesting to see if Thomas Christiansen, if signed with Canada, would bring the same philosophy. But many Canadian supporters, of course, want to see something new. They want to see a change and they want to see a different style of football. And not just a style of football, they want to see a different setup, a different formation, and a different shape. So that could be very interesting because for myself, a 3 in the back is just not the way to go anymore. We saw it under Herdman. I was getting quite fed up that at times under Herdman, we needed to go with a 4 in the back. We needed wingers. We needed a 3-man midfield. And we're finally getting it at times. We did with this model Biello at certain points. Herdman did implement it just a little bit, but it was with the 3 in the back, which just never worked defensively. And we have to go with a 4 in the back to have true success as a nation. And this is what Thomas Christiansen would still bring Canada. He has played with a 4 in the back on multiple occasions, and we're going to break it down. Which is why I still believe Thomas Christiansen is still a great option as a manager for Canada. Albeit he has used the 3-4-3 recently with Panama, but if you go back 2 years ago to World Cup qualifiers, Thomas Christiansen was using a 4-2-3-1 system with Panama on recent occasion. It was game in, game out, a 4-2-3-1, a 4-3-3 setup, and he was very versatile with his systems, which is a huge and brilliant task for a manager to have, very versatile and able to change things up, which is very interesting because most managers who love to stay in a 3 in the back system, which he's been doing recently with Panama, when a manager loves to go with a 3 in the back, such as Antonio Conte, they love to stay in that 3 in the back. They're very stuck on their ways, which we saw a little bit with John Herdman. When you go in that 3 in the back, you don't usually switch out of it. But Thomas Christiansen didn't just use a 4-3-2-1. He used multiple different formations in the 4 in the back. He used a 4-3-3, he used a 4-2-3-1, and he did it not just against smaller nations in Concacaf, he did it against the best. Most notably when Panama earned a massive 3 points at home in World Cup qualifiers to USA, winning 1-0 and holding them out for a clean sheet as well. Christensen also deployed a 4-3-3 system in the Concacaf Nations League bronze medal match, the consolation side against Mexico after Canada beat them 2-0, where Panama arguably deserved a result in that match, but being able to see Thomas Christensen's versatility in formation shapes outside of just using a 3-4-3 is massive for a Canadian perspective if we are able to get him as a manager, as we truly need to change this side into a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1. It just continues to show why Thomas Christiansen is the man for the job. And Thomas Christiansen has proved he is the best manager in CONCACAF on numerous occasions. Just look at what he has done with his nation recently. He managed to bring Panama to a Gold Cup final, ultimately losing out in the end to Mexico by a late Santiago Jimenez winner. But getting Panama to a Gold Cup final and a Gold Cup runners-up when many wouldn't have even put them in that sort of situation when they would have had tabs on Canada, Jamaica, Mexico, or even USA, who Panama did eventually beat in the semifinals on their road to the finals against Mexico. It is just an incredible feat to get to the Gold Cup finals when nobody really would have had them there ahead of other sides like I just mentioned. But not just that, what he has done in this recent window in Concacaf Nations League and Copa America qualifiers was absolutely phenomenal, as Panama brushed off Costa Rica in ease when qualifying for the Copa America, eventually on a 6-1 aggregate scoreline. And I don't care who you're playing in CONCACAF, that is an unbelievable scoreline, and that is phenomenal. As CONCACAF, on any given day, it is extremely hard to go away and to just win at that sort of magnitude and that sort of ease against such a team. Yes, Costa Rica are going through a weird transition, but to be able to pick them apart that easily is phenomenal. So far from myself, Thomas Christiansen has proved quite clearly he is the best manager in CONCACAF, and there is nobody close that comes near Thomas Christiansen managerial-wise in CONCACAF, and for myself, he's the man for the Canadian national team job. Unless someone like Carlo Ancelotti comes clearly wanting this job, you have to give this to Carlo. The only possible shout I'd say, maybe, I know this is a bit rogue, is CPL-wise, is Smirniotis. Just his Canadian presence, having a Canadian manager, it means a lot to the country, as you saw how well it did at the World Cup for a lot of other nations. But for me, Thomas Christiansen has to be the man. He knows the region. He knows everything about the region. He knows how hard it is to go away to a CONCACAF nation. He knows how easy and how difficult that can be. And he knows how to get a result away from home. And that is massive in CONCACAF. And it's also huge that he's versatile at being able to set up in a 4-in-the-back system. Guys, Thomas Christiansen is my man, but who is your man for the Canadian national team job? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say down below, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about these video styles, these more detailed and more in-depth videos, diving in, talking about more technical stats wise and breaking down these reports and not just giving a straight out news headline and talking about straight out my facts on what the news was. And I love what you guys have to say. To break it down in the comments, who would you guys want to see as the next CanMNT manager? What do you guys think of Thomas Christiansen and the new video style? Guys, I'm really appreciating all the subscribers, all the comments, and everything down below. It means the world to me, guys. And we'll be trying to pump out the videos as much as I can. I'll see you guys for the next one. Peace.